Just kidding, I'm not going to do that to you. The following is a Spoilercast on The Quiet Man. Now, normally I would tell you to listen to this podcast after you finish playing the game, but I really don't want anyone to play this game. It's not worth your time. So, if you want to just listen to this podcast, here you go. Ladies and quiet men, welcome to True Route Radio, the podcast that covers games from their humble beginnings to their final end. My name's Mom, and tonight we'll be covering quite possibly the worst thing I played all year. Square Enix and Human Head Studios' The Quiet Man. With me tonight is another victim of the shush lad, TieTuesday. How we doing?
Yo, here's the big spoiler right up front. This game sucks. It's real bad. I'm doing good. Thank you for asking. And holy moly, yeah, we got a gem for you tonight.
So I'm gonna play a little game with you. Say you're from Human Head Studios and you're gonna pitch this game to Square Enix to get some money. How would you try to sell this game in 20 seconds?
Okay, so we're making the bouncer, except we're gonna fuck it all up and then try and put an art angle on top of it. Also, like, mad ableist. Is that good?
That sounds like a good idea, kid. Solve.
Okay.
So if I were gonna try to do it and actually get the deal, I would say we're gonna try to make a beat 'em up that's really simple with FMV cutscenes. The first time you play through, there's going to be no audio because your main character is deaf, and the second time you play with audio, except I don't tell them the part where it still fucking sucks.
Yeah, and oh my goodness, we have to talk. So we'll talk at length about the choices in how they decided to represent deafness across the runs, because yikes! Yeah. All right.
Yeah, so I want to talk about Square Enix for a second because they've had kind of a rough year. They recently reported a loss of $33 million, and they did a lot of weird things, like they got rid of Hitman, Tomb Raider didn't sell that much at all, and instead they decided to fund this.
Is that good? 33 million in losses? That's bad, yeah. Right? That's like super bad.
Yeah, okay, yeah. They have money, but companies have been shut down for fucking less.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? Maybe soon we'll have Square Enix and we'll get another buyout. That'll be great.
Yeah. All right, so the developer in this, they've made a game called Rune. They made the original Prey, the Wii U port of Batman Arkham Origins, Dungeon Defenders 2, and then they also made Canceled Prey 2. So I don't think they have a sterling track record.
Yeah, and here's the thing for me. These games are maybe not outstanding, but I feel like they're functional as games. Like, I wouldn't call them shovelware, but, you know, they're games. They work. They play okay. Like, I played a couple hours of Dungeon Defenders 2 with some friends, and it was an all right time. It was a game.
I still like the original more, though.
Yeah. But, like, there were mechanics, and they worked in sensible ways, which puts it a league ahead of The Quiet
Man. I'm curious if they just took some of the assets of how the lock-on combat works in Arkham Origins and then you reuse that in Quiet Man, because the thing about Quiet Man has that same stiffness that a lot of that, like, modern action games have, like God of War and stuff like that, where your character, no matter where they are, they'll just automatically zoom towards the next closest person when they're doing an attack.
And especially when it's really realistic models, like it's supposed to just be people, so it's so weird when your dude just snaps 180 and zips 20 feet to some guy behind him.
Like, it makes sense if it's like some anime Naruto bullshit. But
yeah, like if it's Raiden in, you know, Metal Gear Rising and he's a super cyborg man, sure, but this is just some jag.
It's just... Like, let's talk about it early. What do you think about the theory about this game starting out with sound and then they took out the sound later to try to just add more depth to it?
Like, upon review, I don't really think that's what happened. The theory that I heard, or at least that, like, when myself and a bunch of friends were talking over it, is that, so you know how Netflix has been on a big game kick recently with, like, they picked up Witcher, they did a bunch of other, yeah. So we were thinking maybe this was originally being pitched as, we're going to get into that streaming video as games market by having a game that is, like, very, very simple to control, and it's like a movie, and it's an episodic experience where it's over a couple of weeks, like they are doing. So it seems like, to me at least, they were initially planning on trying to do some kind of Netflix-based experience or something like that, and then Netflix looked at it and was just like, no.
That's actually pretty on point. I didn't consider it that way. Because it could have just been something where someone plops down for 30 minutes at a time, watches 20 minutes of something and plays 2 minutes of battles, but that would still, you know,
yeah. And so one of the selling points when they originally were releasing The Quiet Man, and, like, yo, don't get me wrong, I'm down for some shorter games. Like, as someone who plays video games full-time as a job, I still don't have time to finish all the games I want to play. So if someone does say, like, hey, it's just a really nice, tight 2 or 3 hour experience, that's kind of appealing to me. But at the same time, when that's like number 2 bullet point for your game is like, yeah, it's over pretty quick at least, like, woof.
Yeah. Jeez. And just to think about it, they showed this off at E3 and like put it on their big showcase thing as well. Well, actually, let me introduce the game first for people who don't absolutely know anything about this at all. It is, as we described earlier, a brawler where you play through the entire game with no subtitles. There's no real audio except for muffled sounds and some weird like piano notes whenever someone talks, which doesn't make any sense. They try and
do some, like some weird musical thing where like instead of talking, it's like if the Charlie Brown teacher, instead of being like, wah, 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 was like, whoa, whoa, like it's that always.
Yeah. And then the rest of the audio is like you're underwater in some underwater segment.
And then
it feels like you're playing underwater
just cut out audio entirely and forego that. Oh, God. Okay, yeah. We'll talk about the inconsistencies.
Yeah. And then after you beat the game once, you had to wait an entire week to play the game again with subtitles. And then we both realized, well, we didn't realize because we kind of assumed the game was worse with context.
Yup. Yup, and it sure was.
Okay, so let's get into it. I queued a video for us to watch while we're going through this. This is New York City, and as we'll figure out, it kind of just jumps all over the place, and it's either in sets in New York that are based on New York, or just all around New York City in general. And
yeah, so it starts with just this sweeping shot coming in on the city with a character walking down the street, going to a hot dog stand. The hot dog stand man just hands you a mysterious bag and says the words, and these are some of the only words you're going to hear in your first playthrough of the game, just to be clear. The savages are out tonight, be careful, which becomes just mad messed up when you realize he is almost exclusively talking about a Latin American gang.
Yeah, now, like, I have no problems with that word normally, and in right context is fine. I mean, that's some people's last name. But, like, we're, like, just 2 steps away from when this guy's red hat turns around and says MAGA on the front of it.
Yeah, it's not great. Like, again, it's one of those things that just... the tone deafness of this is maybe the greatest deafness they portrayed of all. And, so we do have audio here, by the way, on the run-up. Yeah. So this is really important. On the first playthrough of the game, you're not supposed to have audio, like, wherever, but inexplicably at the beginning, you get, the savages are out tonight, and then you walk up to this gang of the 3 dudes who are just being... Wow, they're being super... this writing sucks. It's so stereotypical, too. It's just like... This guy's like, yo, this guy steps to my lady, says, stroke me. And I'm just like, what the fuck is this?
and what sucks is, like, through both playthroughs, this is the one bit of audio you have to listen to twice.
Yeah, because for some reason, as soon as this guy says, yo, nobody ordered no chow. Are you stupid or very stupid? Like, after that, all audio is gone for the first playthrough. Yeah. So this is all of the audio you get. This is all the writing you get to enjoy. So... wow, the average quality of the writing in your first run is roughly 0.
Yeah, so the game does this. Actually, this part is like the one cool moment where it transitions from real to CG. And if you go and slow down the video and try to find out where they stitch together the game and the real life stuff, it's actually pretty well done on this one part.
Yeah, it was like the whole idea was it was supposed to be seamless integration between the FMV and the gameplay parts. And yeah, this one time they do like this kind of neat sweeping shot, and it just, as it goes from one to another, at some point the environment in the back changes, but it's like a pretty subtle difference. And then you see the hand, and it's like, okay, that's obviously a CG hand, but that was still pretty neat the way you did it and approached it. But they just dropped that like a little over halfway through the game. They just completely stopped doing it.
It's like they realize, oh wait, this takes actual effort and work. Fuck it.
Oh heck, this is video games is hard. What are we doing?
Yeah. So I want to point out too that I'm looking at full cast list now on IMDb. There's like 12 actors in total, so they just repeat the same weed man over and over. I call him. They actually refer to him as Marcelo on IMDb, and you can look at him. That's his face right there. But it becomes very apparent that they just reuse him throughout the entire game.
Yeah, like enemy models total is like not including the quote unquote boss encounters is 4. I think there's 4 enemy
I think for the 4 for the gang, and then like 3 for the mafia.
Yeah. So it's pretty dire, and also most of them function the same. And by function the same, I mean, so we were talking about how the combat is like super, you just zip to people and snap to them. It's to the point where on my second playthrough, like as a joke, I tried using only the light attack button for the entire game and just mashing it without aiming, without doing anything, like literally just sitting there and pressing X over and over and over. That got me through every single encounter until they introduced the one enemy type where that doesn't work. So like it is so bad. People will just walk up to you and just kind of like look at you for a bit and not attack. Like you can just walk right in front. Like I literally started walking circles around someone. It was just it's bad. The combat's real suck ass.
So this game doesn't have a HUD, and if you try to look at the controls in the menu, it just shows you these neon light things that try to resemble it. But I've watched multiple playthroughs of this game, and people, like, even during their second playthrough, still don't understand like key aspects because they don't explaining anything. So like there's this achievement called Beatdown where there's this achievement for getting a beatdown, but I didn't know about it until my second playthrough because you have to press the focus button, get close to an enemy who's already downed, and then hold down the run button while pressing light attack over and over.
Yeah.
Like, would you get that at all without experimenting a lot?
In general, the way the combat works when you're trying to do it, and I quote, these are huge quotes here, optimally, is generally, so there's this like, it's not a gauge, it's just what if there was a random blue, what is that called, like a lens flare? There's just like a random off-screen blue lens flare that comes up sometimes, and that means you can activate your karate chop mode. I say karate chop mode because I always just press the focus button, press Y, and then you just karate chop him to the ground.
Yeah, because it ends up knocked down on one guy.
From literally anywhere on the screen. So just, who cares?
So sometimes to the point where my body like gets trapped outside the geometry and have to restart the whole section over again.
So that's one thing that can definitely happen. Enemies can just end up outside the world, and due to the way they have the event flag set up, if that happens, you got to restart because you're not going to be able to get rid of everybody.
Yeah, and you'd think during testing someone would have like recommended, hey, maybe we should have this option where you could just reset the current battle you're on, because that's how game overs work. But when you can't get a game over, you have to quit the game and then watch an unskippable cutscene all over again. And sometimes these are like 8 minutes long.
And like, gosh, as far as testing goes, I can be super upfront serious here. I have a feeling the testers were just like, hey, this is a goddamn train wreck. And then Square Enix was like, you don't get any more money. And they're like, well, guess it's saying a train wreck. Because holy moly, yeah, there's no way. Like the fact that this game went gold, I guess, it had to, right? Because it released. Yeah, so it had to go gold. That officially drops Sony's going gold to the Nintendo seal of quality levels, where it means it will not break your computer and or PS4. And that is all. Yeah.
And I have to say that it came out pretty quickly after E3 as well, because Waypoint and Patrick Klepek did an article where they played the Quiet Man at PAX, and no one was watching the demo Patrick's playing on. He played for a full hour. He was getting achievements. So the game was done, like, maybe like a month after E3 was over.
From what I heard, it was basically there was like a kiosk there, and Patrick was, again, just playing it and assumed it was a demo, so he didn't think anything was amiss about this. But there was someone like standing nearby who was supposed to stop him after 15 minutes, and they just didn't because no one cared. And apparently this was like a single demo booth, like hidden off in the corner.
Oh no, I was
really?
there. There was two. There was two. Yeah, I played it myself. Yeah, and the funny thing about playing the 15-minute demo is you literally do the way the game works out is your last 10 minutes of the demo are just you watching video that you can't hear, so there's no reason to put on the headphones.
I didn't even think about that. Oh, kick ass.
Yeah. Okay, so now we get to the crux of this whole story, why our quiet boy is so angry at these gangsters. The leader of the gangsters is this guy named Isaac, who, the way it's revealed at the start, is he apparently shoots the kid's mom over a fight over a pair of shoes.
Yeah, it is an unreasonable escalation of violence that we see multiple times. But yeah, it's literally like, hey, I got your shoes, motherfucker, at one of the other characters, Tay, who we'll meet down the line. And then Tae's just immediately like, yo, give me those shoes. And he's like, nah. And then he pulls out a gun and is like, give me those shoes. And his response isn't just immediately giving him the shoes and being like, you're fucking crazy, dog. Like, he's just like, nah, I don't give a shit. Shoot me, motherfucker, whatever. And it's like, no one acts like that. There's no one.
Yeah. I noticed that this had to be like sort of like slightly improv because Isaac's actor like repeats stuff over and over, like, you look at these shoes, these are nice shoes, man, look at these shoes, hey homie, what the fuck you looking at, fuck you. So and he just repeat the 2 scenes he shows up, he repeats the same things over and over, like he wasn't given any direction on how to
it definitely makes me think they just like got a teen and then we're like, oh yeah, just do Mexican gang stuff, and like that's all they told him, and he was just like,
oh, excuse me, Ty, really Dominican Republic.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, Dominican. Oh god, yeah, no, the gang in this game is such a caricature. It's very bad. And I have a feeling that was exactly like, I'm trying to remember. I think Human Head Studios is they're European, right? They're somewhere over
I think so.
There. We
can find out in 2 seconds.
Yeah. I'll just check real quick. And
American, Wisconsin.
Wisconsin, really? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so they really didn't try. Well, I mean, okay, Wisconsin. It would make sense in Wisconsin. All right. Well, but yeah. So either way, it's just I definitely agree. It seems like it was improv, and they must have just given this kid no direction whatsoever. Because he's just like, hey, homie, what do you look, homie? Like, it was the most just homies in a row since like 50 Cent Blood on the Sand. It's incredible. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. All right, so he goes to get he's basically infiltrating his base because someone knocked off a courier from the gang he's from and had stole a briefcase full of cocaine. He takes the cocaine back in some really, really stunted action scene where he throws the guy into a bathtub. I want to say this game apparently had the action scenes choreographed from the guy who does the Yakuza games, and you can't really tell except for a few moments. I
think it's only the scripted combat finishers. Those are the only thing that had even a slight hint of the Yakuza flair, because
they're so rare. They happen. And
they're so rare.
You can go through a game. Yeah, you can play through the game and not even see them. Like when we get to it, I'll link you one later, but there's one that no one else got except for me, apparently.
Yeah, there's like one where I saw him like smash a dude's face through a bunch of bottles, and I was like, that was the Yakuza director. And then everything else, like the karate chop to the head and he falls to the ground, I'm like, that was not the Yakuza director.
Yeah. Okay, so now we're treated to, I'm going to scroll through the timeline real quick to see how long this cutscene actually goes. 10 minutes, literally. Yeah, from 10 minutes of the first playthrough to 20 minutes. So you go back to a place called Club Moonrise, where your boss Tae operates a gang. You meet an enforcer named Babcock, who has a running joke where you keep ruining his handkerchief. And the 3 of you are trying to snuff out another gang leader named Isaac, who is apparently responsible for killing your mother years ago. Also, at the same time, Tae's girlfriend has been getting threatening letters, and Tae sends you out to find out who's responsible, because, in his own words, none of these people are worth a bullet, so settle this with your fists.
Yeah, that's a thing he says. So I'll go ahead and drop it here because this is like the first time it happens, especially on the first playthrough. So our character, Dane, he's deaf, allegedly. But the thing is, deaf people can communicate, right? Like, deaf people aren't, it's not like if you're deaf, you just don't understand language. That's not how that works. And also, we see Dane carry conversation with people and react just from saying things, not doing American Sign Language or anything, just straight up talking to them. And the thing is, they don't subtitle that for the player, which immediately begs the question, whose perspective are we? Because, like, clearly our character understands this stuff, so why wouldn't we get subtitles for it?
We're like a ghost, except if ghosts couldn't understand what people were saying, so they're just watching it off screen.
Yeah, we're just...
and, like, with deaf people, too, they can understand what they're saying, because, like, this, when they make voice sounds, the sound reverberates throughout their mouth, so they can understand what they're trying to admit.
Also, they know what they're saying because they're people, and that's how people work. Yeah, but of course, we get none of that.
And like the only way Dane would really be effective is he wouldn't be able to control his own volume control, or like he might have a small inflection, but he just talks. I would use air quotes here normally for just
for what it's worth, like. The folks who are deaf, there's different forms of deafness. There's different ways it affects your speech. Like, I actually work with a speech pathology clinic at Purdue University while I was there for my junior and senior year. And there's all sorts of manifestations through the speech and stuff. So I know it's not on purpose, but I can't hold it against them for having the deaf character just speak and communicate in a normal voice or whatever, because that can happen. They didn't do it on purpose, as we'll very much see. But yeah, like, again, it's just he gets no subtitles for the things he says, and it's so infuriating. And then we get to a conversation with Tay, and they're using sign language back and forth. And why is that not subtitled? Like,
yeah, he's apparently so paranoid that he thinks the broom is bugged or something, because he only uses sign language to communicate when he wants people dead or wants like evil things done. But there's like no reason for that, because he seems like he's in a pretty secure location. So I don't know the reasoning behind that.
I was okay with that too. It kind of made me like Tay a little bit more up front, because it's like, oh, okay, Tay gives a shit. Mm-hmm. Like, he learned sign language to talk to his friend. That's cool of him. Yeah. And then in the playthrough with all the, subtitles, you realize, oh no, yeah, he's just using sign language as a way to say, kill these guys without getting
And I want to say, out of all the acting roles too, he's like the only, you can tell he's a decent actor, but he just given the worst material.
Yeah, Tay is far and away the best actor in this whole thing, and I hope he gets to use the actor that played Tay. I hope he gets to use his talents in better ventures down the line.
Like, if you look at the IMDb, all these actors, this is one of their first roles. They're probably just straight out of school. Mm. But, like, what a place to start. Jeez.
Yeah, and a good thing to note here is Dane's character model versus the actual actor for Dane is, like, reasonably close for the most part. Mm-hmm. Tay's is not even slightly close. Like, Tay, the actor for Tay is a good-looking dude and has, like, a pretty clean haircut, looks sharp. And then the CGI model, they just... None of it. Like, his hair is totally different. His beard is like really weird and like patchy and blocky.
Yeah, his beard is like totally like black, whereas in real life it has a bit of you can see his skin under it.
Yeah, it's got like a fade to like going up the cheekbones and stuff. Yeah. It adds a little bit of definition. Again, good looking dude, and they just totally didn't use that at all in the CGI models. And it's and there's one character, Lala, the singer we were talking about. Her character model looks like a different person entirely. It's wild. Like, not even a little close.
Because they probably 3D captured everyone else for reference, but with, like, her, they couldn't get her in on the day they had to scan everybody.
Yeah. So, there's another thing that happens in the conversation that we didn't catch the first time, but in the time with sound. So, like, with the Savages line at the beginning, I was like, okay, maybe they're just dumb. Like, that's fine. Maybe they're just stupid. Like, they're not actually, they didn't intend it that way. Until the audio version where Tay, in a moment of failing to back the art, they're like, we're not willing to go all in on being racist, but we want to make sure it's conveyed that they are. It's just like, he calls some random gang leader, he refers to him as a fat enchilada, which, it's like cartoonish racism. It's oh, God.
Okay, so now his whole impetus is he wants you to find out who's been sending these letters, and you have to go out in the streets and beat up some more people, and then you end up going to Moonrise's dressing room, and then finding some notes left behind by the proposed kidnapper. And first you find this weird doll thing that's never brought up again inside the bowl of roses.
Yeah.
Yeah, a person in our questions brought that up. Let me scroll down and find the name. Okay, Tactful Ogre says, so what's up with the evil parsnip? And don't tell me it's a red herring.
Yeah, and it isn't really a red herring. It's just they forgot. They forgot about it, I think.
Yeah, because only two things that the kidnapper leaves behind are the note, the parsnip, and then a dead bird.
Yeah, a bird with its mouth bound up. And the parsnip, I think the whole idea was it was supposed to be the calling card, right, of the killer. Yeah. But at the same time, it doesn't make any sense that why would he be there? That would be such a giveaway. Like, okay, well, there's only been 4 people in this room in the last 6 hours. Well, it's one of us.
Yeah. And then you have this whole thing where there's a lot of scenes in this game where you're walking into a place for 8 seconds, and then it goes to the next scene, just to give you a tiny, tiny little slice of gameplay that doesn't actually exist.
Yup.
And so after you're looking at the evil parsnip, you react to a picture on the wall, and then realize that this whole kind of plot has this weird incest angle to
Yeah,
it.
there's a very uncomfortable, like, weird Oedipal angle in that he looks at the picture of the singer on the wall and then pulls out his phone of a picture of, and they managed to make it look like just different enough that I didn't realize it was the same actress, but it's dead ass just the same actress, full on. Yeah, I noticed when I looked at the IMDb, and so it's very clear that he's into this lady, and then he looks at a picture of his phone, and it's his mom, and they look identical, and it does not stop being weird. Don't worry, that never stops.
Yeah, and I was watching other people play through it, like Giant Bomb. They were so confused because they thought, is this the same woman? And he's just dating young Tay as an adult now? And it was just really... And Dane has never really interacted with Lala much because she's under wraps the entire time. So he just gets this infatuation just from the fact that she looks like his mom.
Yeah, it really sucks. And also, so again, just to clarify here, when you're playing this game without audio, it is unreasonably confusing because you're still not sure if the mom and Lala are the same person. And there's I was thinking at first there was some weird time shenanigans going on because I knew they were going to do some dumb shit. So I assumed maybe this is, Back to the Past or to the future, or his mom got punched through time or something, who knows, something. And then it just turned out, no, it's just bad.
Yeah. And during this flashback too, she keeps giving him these weird erotic looks. And whenever you get a game over, you get these weird moments where she just looks over you and you can't really tell, wait, is this my mom giving me weird erotic looks, or is this Lala giving me weird erotic looks? And it's I don't want any of this. I want out.
There was one in particular where the rest of them I was like, okay, it's a mom putting a sick kid to bed or something. Sure, why not? But then there was one where she was backlit through curtains and just lying on her bed on her side in the most
giving a hey baby.
Yeah,
pose.
the sexy dad pose, but instead it was sexy mom, and it sucks. And I was everyone in the call when I was playing it immediately was just ugh, gross.
I want to remark during all this too, Dane shows no emotion on his face whatsoever. He looks like Laszlo from Suikoden 4, with just having anything happening on just has the same stoic, oh, this is just gonna happen around me face going on.
Yeah, imagine if someone did smell the fart acting, but permanently, because that's what Dane's expression is at all times. It's the worst.
Yeah. Okay, so now for some reason we're going to Lala's apartment, and we have to fight through a subway. And then we get the second appearance of Weed Man Marcelo in his weed jacket, and he has a machete this time. And then there's this really terrible cut when you punch him, blood comes out of his mouth, and then it goes to live action. That's the part where it's okay, they don't really give a fuck anymore.
Yeah, there's no smoothness to the transitions at this point. It's just kind of a thing happened in the cutscene, hard cut. It's kind of happening in the game. That's about where it gets at this point.
So Dane fights his way literally out of the subway, except this time he's fighting gang members dressed in blue, and then you hear stock woman screaming noise. It's kind of terrible when you get to the second playthrough and all of it's just stock stuff happening. You get witnessed by your dad Robert, who's a detective, and now he's trailing after you as well. Dane literally walks 10 feet down the street, and then
yeah, this was great.
That's all that happens.
I, on the second playthrough, just started doing donuts on the ground, because I was just wondering where exactly is the boundary, and it's legit, if you want to, and you hold run and right, it takes about a second and a half. That's what they give you, and there's no interaction. It's just a second and a half of running, and then another cutscene immediately. It's so bad.
Yeah. So, in your first playthrough, Lala's talking on the phone to someone you don't know, and you just have to sit there and watch, and then she looks outside and see Dane, and then Dane, they both do a weird wave, and he goes behind a tree like a little kid.
Yeah, also, the CG here, when the way they tried to do it was, the building and the facade and everything outside is real, but then there's, a window you look into, and that's supposed to be Lala in her apartment, and it's supposed to be real. The problem is there are so many stock objects, especially I've, messed around with different programming engines to try and do some game stuff so I can understand it a little better. It is a stock table with a really bad texture and way too much reflectivity on it, so it just sticks out like a sore thumb. Also, her jacket looks so bad. There's no fabric physics on it whatsoever. It looks like it's just it's like a weird gold jacket that it looks like she just rolled around in starch for 3 days or something, because it...
Tetsuya Nomura definitely did not design the fashion on this game.
No, the fashion is bad. The fashion is quite bad.
Okay, so Tay and his crew rolls up, and then they have a conversation. And then this is the kind of the part where you realize in both versions that Dane has never really interacted with Lala much. He just, because he introduces him, and then he gets in the car, and then he's now her bodyguard for a very short amount of time.
Yeah.
Also, during this conversation, I want to point out, at different points, Tay turns around and still talks to Dane. Like, Dane can read his mouth from behind his head.
Yeah, like, there's a part where Dane is just, like, staring wistfully out a window, and Tay just keeps talking to him. And this is the one time where there is just... Well, I say the one time. That's rich. One of many times where they just give up the deaf angle entirely. Like, they just forget the character's supposed to... Like, I think scenes like this are where the theory of... the game had audio and then it sucked too bad, so they tried to find a way to like make it work to a certain extent, like maybe just recorded some quick scenes, like the opening one of Dane like pointing to his ear and kind of wagging his finger like a shitty Sonic, and like that, because it makes no sense. Like, people keep doing it too. Like, there's a part later in the game where it's extremely egregious, where someone has a mask on and they yell at him and he still acts like he can hear it no problem.
Yeah, it happened during the first scene, too, where I got really confused on a second playthrough, because he says the line, the briefcase is important, to that one thug that pushes him at the start. I thought the thug was saying it, because I had no context on what Dane sounded like or what was going on. It was really, really fucking confusing.
Yeah.
This game has this weird thing of, it switches between CG and real, seemingly at random. I want to say it's just because they couldn't get the actors for certain days and certain sets, and so they had to comp it by just, making everything else CG.
Yeah, that's my best guess, because it's just a scene of a dialogue happening between Tay and Lala, like standing out in front of an apartment, and there is no reason for it to not be FMV. It's baffling, and I don't think there's a combat section you flow right into or anything, so there's no reason for it to be CG. And also, from a cinematography angle, I hated this scene because it's just shoulder, 180, shoulder, the entire conversation.
You get one shot where you get to see the other two bodyguards that are with them, and they look exactly the same because you'll be fighting them later as NPCs. And they're the weird squinty boys, I call them.
Yeah.
All right, so he rides with her to Club Moonrise to have her do another show. Tay is supposedly going out of town for a trip, even though this is dropped later on because he gives up, so there's no reason for him to say why he's going on a trip.
Also, super good note someone gave me during the playthrough, and I went back and watched it, and they are absolutely right. Yeah. Every time there is a writing in the car scene, it makes no sense. Like, it's like they're turning right 100 times or something like that. Like, they just keep turning right, and the lighting is really bizarre in the way it works. So it's like clear they were just doing laps around a block.
Yep.
Oh, it's so bad.
She gets to perform at Club Moonrise, and this moment could have been kind of cool because it's like, I wonder what deaf people hear when someone's playing music and they just have to kind of imagine what's going on. But it gets ruined by more weird shots of the mom, and then Crow Man, a guy in a crow outfit, bursts into the club with a whole bunch of gangsters. Also, Weed Man Marcello returning for his third trip.
Yeah, it's basically exactly like the Plague Doctor outfit from Hitman, like more or less, like the exact same way.
Yeah, so you have a nickname for him.
Yeah. So when I played Hitman, I put on that outfit and refused to use any weapons other than cans of spaghetti. So we kind of ended up the nickname Dr. Spaghetti for him, and that kind of stuck. And for what it's worth, Dr. Spaghetti is an appropriately serious name for this character, I feel.
Yeah. So in order to like alert the cops in the fire department that they're under attack, they turn on the fire extinguisher. It doesn't like strobe or anything or make any noise. It just turns the entire screen like tinted red.
Yeah, it looks more like they're in a submarine that's about to get hit with depth charges or something. Like, it's like, oh no. But yeah, it's just red lighting. Like, they couldn't do anything to portray it. Like, again, as you mentioned earlier, this would be a really good place to do kind of like an interesting thing about, like deafness and how you would respond to that kind of situation, or how it would be different for someone with that, but instead it's just nothing. We didn't do anything with that. Like, the fact that they did a deaf protagonist and then did nothing with that other than just disrespect it and shit on it all over is it's one of the biggest frustrations with this game for sure.
All right, so now we get our first boss fight with Dr. Spaghetti here. So I want to say a lot of these boss fights sort of have like a punch-out gimmick, like you have to figure out one thing to do against them, although it's inconsistent sometimes. Like for most of the boss fights, it's usually go into focus mode, get off dodge their first attack, and then you get a free counterattack. Except it doesn't, getting focus sometimes doesn't work because you don't get enough hits in to activate that mode. And also, depending on the hit detection, you can get in a way where you can just loop this. After you get him down once, you can just spam the same attack over and over and just keep him in a stun lock, so none of it fucking matters in the long run.
Yeah, basically this was the first encounter where mashing light didn't always work. I had to mash light, and then if he wound up, I had to dodge, and then continue mashing light, and that still managed to win the fight entirely. There is one later one where they force it.
Otherwise, if you get low on health and you don't know what to do, you're just walking around in circles while the guy follows you at like hyper speed, trying to catch up with you, and then it looks like the most goofiest shit.
Yeah, they like don't have a way to smoothly transition to a running animation, so he just walks super fast, and it gets really good later on when this dude is doing like a beat up kind of walk, so he's like hunched over and like taking tiny steps and stuff, but then they just run it.
He's walking like a nurse from Silent Hill.
Exactly, yeah.
Dr. Spaghetti manages to tase Day and knock him out for a little bit. He drives off in his van. Somehow, Dane is able to... Sorry, I said Taylor. Dane. Dane is able to keep up with Dr. Spaghetti, who's driving away through the streets of New York, and then almost catches up, but then he gets blocked off by gang members for some reason, who appear in their really ugly green cars.
Yeah.
There is a dynamic animation, if you want to see here, where he pumps a guy's mouth full of gasoline at like... I want to say 42.
Oh, wow. No kidding. How about that?
Oh, yeah. Go to 4215. Yeah, and let's just watch this for a second. That's a Yakuza thing right there. That's totally what Kiryu would do. He would take an object nearby, use it, and then throw it against them after it's broken.
Yeah, that is incredibly a Yakuza animation, because that reminds me of Yakuza 0 when you get a box of nails and you just like trick them, shove it in their mouth and uppercut them or whatever. Like that's what that looks like. So that was a Yakuza director right there for sure.
Yeah, and no one's going to see that because they're really hard to activate and you have to get them knocked down in a certain location.
So was it here or a little after where we reached the moment of, and I'll just admit I was watching Giant Bomb play through this as well, because as soon as you suffer the Quiet Man once, you got to watch everyone else suffer it, right? Like, you got to get that Schadenfreude for yourself. And this is where I do believe they started chanting "Mom's dead" parkour because there's just a nonsensical part, and this is right after we learned, the whole thing of like, oh, his mom got shot, and it looks like this person, and that's why he's mad. And he just runs up to someone, like first he front flips over someone, then he goes through a laundromat, and instead of just running like a foot to the left like a regular person, he like plants his hand on this bald dude's head and just vaults over him, like jumps like no joke, like 8-foot vertical leap over the top of this guy for no reason. And it's so out of place that, they just started chanting like, "Mom's dead parkour, mom's dead parkour." And God, it reminded me of, someone once compared this to, it was like the Bouncer plus a David Cage game. And this is maybe the most David Cage-ass moment where completely out of context, they just felt the need to put in some really not good action scenes. It reminded me of... is it Heavy Rain, where there's the part where you're running through a grocery store and it's way better to just mess everything up because then you get like attacked by chickens and like slide on banana peels and shit? Yeah.
All right, so there's this really weird section here where apparently Dane is imagining Dr. Spaghetti in his head a lot of the time. And like it's never really expanded upon later on because he still fights him. Like in real life, so it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And then we get a scene here where Babcock is talking to Dane saying, "Hey, we have to tell Tay about this. Your girl's been kidnapped." And Dane is like giving him sign language, and Babcock's like, "I don't understand what you're saying." He gets mad and he stomps off and he breaks a window for no reason. And like Dane's a real asshole.
Yeah, like Babcock's just, like he's signing at him, and it's like clear they've interacted a lot before because they're, two of the top people in this gang. So, like, Dane definitely knows Babcock doesn't know sign language. So, like, why is he signing at him? And then Babcock just responds with, like...
Yeah. And there's no reason for it either because they're out and open. They're going to be heard whatever they're going to do anyway.
And also, on top of all this, Dane just holds conversations with people, regular style, and why would he not do it here?
He can just talk.
He can just talk, and apparently here, because he can look away from people and still understand them. So it's not lip reading, it's just wizard shit at this point.
As the ablest mistake a lot of people make is when they're interacting with someone who's deaf, they also think they're mute for some reason.
Yeah, and no.
And I want to say that's what happened here with the writing.
Yeah.
They just don't let Dane talk when he should be talking.
And then the thing is, though, is then they do let Dane talk at other moments. So it's like, it feels like maybe there were like 4 writers and none of them talked at any point.
It's like a grotesque monster kind of thing where everyone writes a part of the story and then they combine them all at the end. All right. So now we get to fight through more gang territory. This is, I want to talk about something real quick here. This is the part where you start fighting like 4 people at once, and it's really terrible. If you thought like fighting multiple targets in Dark Souls is bad, you have not played The Quiet Man.
Yeah. This is where the mashing light strategy really gets good, because no one can swing faster than you can interrupt them, and it'll just auto lock onto stuff. Like, you might take a hit or 2 to the back of the head, but you'll just be stun locking everybody constantly, and it's the only way to handle this stuff. It's so much easier and better.
Did you get a game over at all while playing? Because I never died during my entire playthroughs and only saw the game over stuff.
I had to get on my first playthrough, I had to like intentionally get a game over after I finished, because my chat was like, yo, you gotta get a game over and see what it is. And then I think on second playthrough, I was being such a jackass, I managed to get like 4. But that was because I was trying to make my own fun.
Like, I can understand them trying to make a basic game for people who aren't good games to play through, but at the same time, since nothing's conveyed properly and it's not fun, it just loses any argument it has towards
things
that.
Don't work is the other thing. Like, things aren't consistent. There was I can't remember exactly what move it was, but there was one of them where I would repeatedly like get a knockdown, do the focus finisher, and it would hit like 2 times, and then the last hit of it would always whiff. It just always whiffed. It never connected. Like, I tried to do it like 20 times in a row. Every single time it missed. So they didn't even, no one saw that move whiffed, I guess, or they just didn't fix it.
Whenever you do a focus attack, all the enemies like change position to specific locations, and sometimes it doesn't work, so they'll warp themselves to like behind you or something, and then you don't hit anything at all, and it's god awful. Okay, so is this the line where we get a weird thing about the
the weird dig at the ACLU from the police, right? It was just like the police like, hey, we don't want to get the
because they like, we don't want to cause a hate crime or something like that, and it's like unnecessary.
Yeah, like they aren't saying it in a like, hey, maybe don't be a racist shitheel. They're just saying like, oh, we don't want to get the ACLU on our asses, or else we totally would do that. And it's like, all right, gross, thanks, I guess. Yeah, it's weirdly, especially in today's day and age. Yikes. It's bad.
I almost skipped by the scene, but so we get a flashback of Dane's dad, who was a cop at the time, and he's talking, trying to console him in the flashback. Okay, so you don't find out this out until the second playthrough, but he's like telling him that it's all his fault that his mom got murdered, even though it's clearly not.
And the thing is, this was actually like, I got mad about this scene because it is clearly filmed to try and convey through visuals that it's a cop sitting on a bucket next to a kid whose mom just got shot and kind of like looking at the ground and just like softly talking to him and stuff. And it's very clearly a police officer trying to console a kid whose mom just died, trying to maybe get the kid out of shock and like trying to make sure he's trying to help him do okay. Like it's clear and obvious, and there's no reason any human being on the planet would ever think otherwise. And then once you get audio, it's like he was saying very quietly, he's like, this is all your fault, you're the reason your mom got shot, you stupid motherfucker.
Today the sun went down. You can't go back on this. And like, because no piece of media has ever tried to do this before. I have to give The Quiet Man this. Like, you've never seen a cop get down with a kid and tell him it's all your fault.
You stupid idiot. You got your mom killed, you dumb asshole. Also, I don't think we've ever fully cleared it. So it is not Dane's fault in any world. It was Tay and the one dude having the struggle. Isaac, having the struggle over shoes. And what happens is like Isaac lunges at him again instead of just dropping the shoes and leaving and being like, yo, like that's a bit much. He instead goes and tries to wrestle the gun from his hands, and the mom gets shot by like an accidental misfire. And the only way Dane was even involved was he was with his mom at the time, again, as like a 6 or 7 year old, and waved to his friend Tay he saw, but didn't realize there was like a gun and a struggle going on. So because he waved,
even though they were clearly, well, I guess he's deaf, so he couldn't hear them yelling about the shoes.
Yeah.
Oh, they got me there, Quiet Man. Congrats.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, you didn't hear the shoe argument. But yeah, so he just kind of waves at him, and then that means the misfire hit his mom, I guess, which again is... Nothing about this is this child's fault. Surprise! Someone else murdering a kid's mom, not the kid's fault. And yet here we have cop dad being like, "Oh, you dumb idiot, getting your mom shot. I wish you were never born, you dumbass." Like, and
we know we skipped over it, but we also missed a scene where he's getting beat up by a kid by his dad after the mom died, and then he's like, "It's all your fault, your mom."
Yeah, like they try and make him the one sympathetic character in the version without audio. And then they just decide, no, we're gonna like that's the one twist this game does. Like it tries to do a bunch of other twists, but they're all really obvious and bad. The only twist they pulled off was, just kidding, this person we filmed to make look as likable as possible is actually a big piece of shit. But again, it doesn't work because the way they filmed it, like visually, doesn't match up with what's being said. So it just doesn't work at all. It would be like if we just had a silent film of like myself and mom hanging out in an ice cream parlor, having a nice discussion and like smiling at each other and just like enjoying some ice cream or whatever. And then you get the audio and I'm just like, "Fuck you, mom, you garbage piece of ass." Like, it doesn't match up at all. So it doesn't work.
Like a way they could have fixed this is had more flashback scenes of happy things happening where like all three of them are together. And then the dad, in the answer version, you would hear the dad give some kind of like backhanded compliment or like terrible remark. Like, but when you're watching the regular version, it would just sound like normal text of just a dad interacting with his son. And instead, we just get it in the weirdest scene where a cop is blaming his son for everything going wrong in life.
Well.
Oh, okay. So we come across the shrine with like the best phrase I've heard in a long time used in the worst game ever. He finds a shrine of Lala and the drawing of the Quiet Man. And he sees the text, "I hear you with my blood," written on the wall in what looks like blood, but it's like marker.
Oh, it's so good. And this was in the trailer too. And I'll be honest, like I was already pretty sold on this game when I heard Patrick Klepek talking about it. And then as soon as I watched the trailer and saw "I hear you with my blood," I was like, "Oh, I am playing this." Like, oh baby, this sucks. Absolutely.
Yeah. So we fight Dr. Spaghetti again. Do you know if he's real during this one or is he still an apparition? I think he's an apparition because Robert's outside at the moment, or? Yeah,
either it's an apparition or Robert just ran in, decided to be Dr. Spaghetti at this time for some reason, and like knocked him out again. But the thing is, we beat Dr. Spaghetti this time, and I don't think you get knocked out or anything, right? You just like...
No, you kick him through a door, and then he disappears, and that's why I think this one might have been in his head as well.
Yeah, I think this was an apparition, which, again... This whole character of Dr. Spaghetti is a real enigma in what it actually represents to literally anybody, because it's conflicting all over. Like, based on what we learn later, there is no reason that Dane would be attacked by a mental apparition of Dr. Spaghetti if Dr. Spaghetti is supposed to be, like, just an evil hero or something.
Yeah, and multiple people have the mask as well for no reason, so... Robert was just dropping it off at random locations to piss everyone off.
Yeah, I guess.
I want to point out here they reused an environment that's really obvious because they use that TV. There's the room with a TV that's paused on some DVD menu, but it's so apparent when you play through the game that when they reuse this environment, you notice it again. It's just from a different angle.
Yeah. So there's a lot of fixed camera angles, you know, a la like old Resident Evil games, and yeah, in the menu, like, it's so obvious, too, because it's such a bad fake menu that it's, like, comical when you first see it. It's like someone used a Windows Movie Maker to, like... I like to imagine it was just the gang, like, looking through their photos they had of their last big meet and greet.
Well, I noticed something the writers try to be clever with. The thing they're highlighting in the menu currently is audio. Get it? Because you can't hear.
Because you can't hear. What the?
I bet whoever thought that up was really feeling clever with themselves that night. So you interrogate one of the randomly generated guards. This one's the bald one that you see over and over. and you decide to interrogate him by just stepping on his leg.
Yeah, and he acts like it's really painful, and like Dane's leaning back, so it looks like there's no weight on it whatsoever. So he's just kind of lightly resting his
There's
foot.
like nothing wedged between it either. He's on the ground sitting there, and he steps on his leg.
Yeah, it's not a good interrogation. Like he should be stepping on his throat or something and just asking him questions and then letting up a little bit or something for him to breathe and answer. Like that's how it should have gone. But instead he just kind of steps on his leg and is like, and the guy's just like ah. And it's like,
and I want to say too, so 3 cops burst in to try to defuse the situation. Dane escapes. These 3 cops have the same face as the guy he just tried to interrogate.
Yeah.
All right, so now Robert and Dane meet in an alley, and then they're trying to figure out what's going on. This is where you figure out their relationship from the start, where it's his son, and apparently they've been fighting over this gang territory for years now, and Robert's just sick of it.
Yeah. The connection with Robert and this whole thing is so bizarre because he's dad and cop, and also, another thing, as we'll find out later on, and just like none of it makes any sense. His motivations
we get this flashback scene too where they arrested Isaac, and like Dane is really angry, so he's just improv shoveling around trying to get out of his dad's arm, who's not holding him really tightly. And then Robert says, "Revenge is mine, son, not yours," or something.
Yeah, like Dane's trying to break free from his dad's grasp to go punch this kid while he's in cuffs.
His hands are bloody too, I guess, because that just happened that day with getting shot.
Yeah, I guess so the dad again is just like, he's like, "No, you dumb idiot, you got your mom killed. I'm the one who gets to be mad."
Even though he clearly gets out of juvie and stuff like that, so clearly he didn't get any revenge at all.
Yeah, there was no revenge to be had. He's very successful now.
Robert's face is very weird. He keeps doing this like weird smug grin constantly, even when he's angry.
I think this was a case of something that I first really witnessed firsthand in Mass Effect Andromeda, where what happened was when they were mocapping the actors and doing like the face captures and stuff. So a big important thing is to have a completely neutral face when you do that capture, and then you apply the animations on top of that to create the animations. Yeah. So the problem is, if you capture someone who has a default like smile or smirk and you don't correct it, then you put the smiles and smirks on top of it, or even like a one-sided frown, and then you just end up with like a flat mouth with one side upturned, and it just makes, basically take any expression your face was going to be doing and then try to add a smile algorithmically to that. And that's, I think, what was happening with Robert was he like had a little bit of a smirk when they captured him. And so he always has like an angry smirk or a sad smirk.
Yeah. Okay, so we learn that the Quiet Man is some kind of figment that Dane made to deal with the fact that his mom's dead, is like a superhero that he wanted to use to save people. So he goes back to Club Moonrise. He sees inside this box Lala's dress with some blood apparently applied to it, even though she's totally fine, and also a mask. And this apparently makes him go insane and turn into the Quiet Man briefly. And then there's this weird section where he's just screaming in the worst possible way.
Yeah.
So he's kind of like, the screen is shaking and he's doing like this kind of half yell, and it keeps stitching back and forth between audio of things going on and his scream. So it sounds like you watched Peter Pan, right?
Uh-huh.
You remember at the end when Captain Hook is skipping across the river after the crocodile shoots him out, and is going, "Smee." It sounds like that with Dane at this moment.
Yeah, actually, that's pretty spot on, huh? All right, well, good stuff. Yeah, I just was thinking from like a perspective of a very big DBZ and also G Gundam fan. This is some bad screaming. This is some bad yelling. There is no energy in it. Like, it's very much, this is your first time screaming for a role, and the director didn't tell you like, no, I need you to go all out. Like, you have to go ham. You just saw something crazy. I need you to scream real good. And they just took one take and were like, good scream. Take it easy. Have a good night. Like,
yeah. Okay, so talking about G Gundam, I noticed you kept calling his focus mode super mode. Is that just a normal thing you do with your games?
Yeah, at this point I just call everything super mode. It's
no, I can totally go with that.
Yeah, it's a good descriptor, and also I find it really funny comparing people going like barely anything, just kind of like zooming and super punching and being like, oh yeah, no, they're going Super Saiyan, or oh yeah, that's super mode for sure. Yeah, just anytime anyone powers up even the tiniest bit, because that's a habit.
Yeah. So Dane goes berserk here. He happens to beat up every single person in Club Moonrise with the mask on, including Babcock. Babcock drops his phone and happens to be laying face up so Tay can see that Dane was wearing the Quiet Man mask.
And apparently they were in the middle of a Skype call when this all happened, and neither of them hung up, and Tay wasn't taking any action. He was still just quietly talking to Babcock.
Like, I can understand, like, Dane going on video phone because he wants to be able to see what they're signing.
Yeah, like
but there's no reason Babcock would... Yeah, there's no reason Babcock would be on video chat at this moment when you're getting attacked and you need, like, the fastest signal possible.
I just like seeing your handsome face, boss. Is there anything wrong with that? That's, like, legit the only... It's so bad. But yeah, so we get Dane looking down at this phone with the bird mask on, but he still has his hair exposed and his leather jacket and is very identifiable, to which... Tay reasonably kind of like freaks out over, and he's just like, are you fucking kidding me? Because, you know, he puts it together instantly that Dane is the person doing this weird kidnapping, or is the person who's been causing all these problems, like, etc., etc.
Oh, I'm watching the scene too where Babcock gets kicked down. The way his hand is positioned, he's like, this probably was like the third take. Okay, be very careful not to drop the phone wrong. Just put it down on the ground. He moves the phone slightly when he puts it on the ground so it can get a clear shot of the camera.
Yep. Yeah. No, that is not a good call, or a good fall rather. Also, geez, I just watched a part where they transition from real dad to fake dad at roughly 135.07, like right around that range, and yeah, wow, you can see that smirk real bad, huh? Like, he's like remembering this horrible moment, and then he looks like he's just like, haha, my kid's fucked up.
Last night's Seinfeld was pretty good, wasn't it, kid?
Yeah. Could Joey be any more? Am I right?
Can we talk how his voice doesn't match his body at all?
Oh, it super doesn't.
Life's a bunch of crazy, isn't it, kid? Hey, it's me, Ryu, from Streets.
A few of my favorite things are yelling at my son for no reason. Why without any ice?
Latest season of The Simpsons, and dirt. Okay, and then we get this weird scene where it clearly points out that Dane could not be the original Dr. Spaghetti because it shows Lala being kidnapped somewhere and someone recording that footage is sent to him.
Yeah. On
what's clearly edited on video footage of a phone because they couldn't, play the real video of it.
Mm-hmm. So is this where we just out of nowhere start going to Isaac's gang's place?
He gets texted the location of Isaac's house from Dr. Spaghetti.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
And then so now we're fighting 20 guys in the subway with really terrible animation.
And it's the same shit. Yeah,
yeah. So this is the part where I got I had to restart 10 minutes of footage because my character got stuck in the wall. I was sticking footage in the video version of this, and then I had to restart this whole section all over again, and it was bad.
God, this is one thing that so the gameplay, I feel like we kind of glossed over how bad it is because there's so little depth that it's hard to really state how bad everything feels. Mm-hmm. So as the game goes on, they just start throwing more and more dudes at you over and over, and they all look the same. So especially when the camera starts getting all messed up from using your super mode, it just gets really confusing on, oh, did I not kill that guy, or did I knock that dude out and this is another,
or is this a new
is this a new of the same guy? To the point of one of the later sections, I was literally just pressing the Y button for I think it was 7.5 minutes or something, just knocking people out repeatedly. And everyone else on call, Loon, was just so do you need to maybe walk up to someone else? Or is there another event flag or something? Or are we missing
Nope, it's literally just beat up.
Yeah, just beat up 100 guys. Yeah, that all look the same.
So normally, now modern, action and beat-up games, you get new moves, you get new techniques as you go along. This game, even though it has maybe 10 encounter sections, stays exactly the same from start to finish until a moveset change later on.
Yup.
This game has some really bad, like, film school 101 mistakes going on where there's shot, reverse shot, except it changes the perspective on where you are, so your characters look like they're standing in the same location. At this moment right here that I'm watching right now, a gang member jumps through this shipping container at you. You defeat him, you walk through the shipping container, and you exit out what looks like the same direction you came in at. And it's really confusing.
Yeah. I think it might have been the scene in the dressing room earlier or something like that, where on our playthrough, like two different people without talking to each other, we both were counting the number of times they broke the 180 rule, which...
that's what it's called, yeah.
Yeah. So the 180 rule, I'll just explain it real quick. It's basically you don't move a camera more than 180 degrees around like visual elements without some kind of panning shot or sweeping shot or something like that, just to keep the audience oriented, basically, because otherwise it looks like people are just like moving,
like teleported.
Yeah, like people are moving in weird ways and all that, and especially because that one room has a mirror in it, so it gets even more baffling. Like, so you get these weird breaks of the 180 rule with random reflections put in it, and again, like, no rules in cinema are, you know, hard and permanent, and there's reasons to break the 180 rule. The Quiet Man does not have any of those, and it doesn't have...
And when you're always so confusing as it is with no audio, it just makes it worse.
Yeah, so you can't even... like, and it's one of those things, too, of... Since there was no audio at first, like, for a while we were like, oh, are they trying to imply that, like, Dane sees everyone as himself, or, like, due to his deafness has increased empathy and can, like, really feel what other people are feeling or something like that? And it's just... No, it's just really shitty cinematography.
Yeah, like every time we want to give this game more credit than it deserves, they end up breaking our expectations on that. We expect nothing and they deliver less.
Yeah, basically.
All right, so he goes into his garage, beats up more guys, somehow manages to start a fire since one of them was smoking, I guess, and now the whole building's on fire as he's fighting his way up.
Oh yeah, they were like working on a car outside. And there was some oil on the ground, and yeah, Dane just like punches a cigarette out of someone's mouth, I guess, and that lights everything up, and we decide that that's not good enough.
Yeah, and this is the first time we see our first like New York apartment interior. These apartments are fucking huge. I guess Isaac really made it if he can get a room like this big in New York.
Yeah, like, oh my goodness, that apartment would probably cost like literal... tens of thousands a month free, like easily.
Yeah.
It is wild huge, and
it's all the briefcases of cocaine they're stealing.
Yeah, and the other thing too is there are literally only two types of buildings in this game, and I was a little upset about this because it was like, I think part of it was clearly designated as like Brooklyn or like part of the Bronx, something like that, and I've been there. There's a lot of nice places and nice people. You can just walk around. It's actually a nice place. It's all right. Like, it's an all right place. Mm-hmm. But the only houses they have are just like super dilapidated. Walls are broken. There's exposed wires, graffiti all over on the inside and stuff, and et cetera, et cetera. It looked like the set of a bad 80s action movie's ending scene where the good guy has to run through the gang's, you know, whole place to get to the leader. But all the houses look like that until you get to, Isaac's place, which is unbelievably nice, including a fucking gold statue of himself, which seems even more whack when, like, some of the people were, like, direct underlings under him and living in these, like, dilapidated shitholes. And it's just like, yo, we should rock more communism in this gang, is all I'm saying.
All right, so we finally meet Isaac, and he's talking to us with the mask on briefly, so we can't even understand him if we were Dane in that perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Isaac is another character where his mouth voices don't match his huge man body.
Yeah, and they never actually had a live-action actor of adult.
So they could have just had some other actor with a gruff voice do that instead.
Yeah, there was actually no reason for this character's voice to be what it was, and it was, again, not matching up to... not just like the size of the body or anything, but also the character's intent. Because there's a lot that goes into voice acting. It's hard work. It's acting, as it turns out. And it's not a believable portrayal at all. Like, he doesn't come off as intimidating or scary in any way, shape, or form. But then we get into the fight with him, and let's talk about how bad this fight is.
Okay, can we start with the music? Because that was probably the best part of this entire thing.
I will allow it.
When you're playing through the first time, you can't really hear anything. The second time, it's this weird country jam that doesn't fit the scene at all.
Yeah, it was like knockoff Bastion, like trying to do some Ion Storm stuff,
Twangy.
but really bad. Yeah, just really, really bad. The thing that drove me crazy about this fight more than anything, so all of your standard attacks just don't do anything. Like, not in a they don't damage him way or they don't do anything. Just your attacks phase through him entirely.
Yeah, like your ability clearly building up focus meter during this part, but he doesn't react at all, so you can't tell what's going on.
Yeah, and this is the first fight where they just straight up demand that you build up focus meter by attacking this enemy that has 0 response, like his animations don't even get interrupted, and then you can't just do a focus attack, you have to lock on with focus attack and then wait for him to attack and dodge and attack in response, which...
Yeah. Either way, or like have him do one of his like charges and then like run out of the way before he hits you with it.
Yeah,
but he
when you're in
cancels
focus.
out that charge constantly.
Yeah, and it's real bad. Like, after you I've just watched so many people do this, and every single time there is a solid 3 minutes of trying to puzzle out what the hell the game wants, because most people haven't done the counterattack thing yet. Heck, I didn't do focus attacks.
Most people don't even know what focus is.
Yeah, I didn't do any special attacks until like a third of the way through the game. Yeah.
And then the whole time too, your screen is like, if you're getting hit, your screen is like turning, desaturated. So it gets harder and harder to like parse what's going on.
Oh, we never mentioned a beautiful feature of this game they do on occasion during fight scenes, where during your fight scene, they play like a 30% opacity version of older cutscenes over the top of them, but the layering is all wrong. So like it looks like it's 30% opacity on top of the environment, but then only like 5% opacity over the character models, so it looks really bizarre. It's
like your characters are standing on top of the cutscene.
Kind of, yeah. Or like there's a projector that's playing this cutscene like actually over the entire environment, and you just happen to be standing like... Yeah, it's so weird.
Okay, so this is a place where you got a dynamic hit animation environmental kill thing with the statue, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did not get it at all, so I thought that was just a red herring for the room. Because I kept trying to get him over to it. I spent like 5 minutes standing near a statue. Hey, can you like get knocked out in this location? Never happened for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everything. Anything involving combat, like event triggers, is so finicky. It is unreal. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then we beat Isaac.
Yeah, and then we do like a Star Platinum Punch Aura combo on him through a window, which I'm glad they deliver on there.
And then we jump out the window after him, and it's not super clear at first. It looks like
how far up they are.
Yeah, it looks like we just decided to jump out like a 40-story window or like a 40-story window or something, because again, super nice room. And it's implied this dude is like, a big, powerful gang leader or whatever, so you would assume it's probably penthouse or something approximating penthouse. But then apparently what it was we punched him out to like a balcony before with a bunch of like air conditioners and skylights and stuff on it. Like there was a secondary roof that we landed on, but it still looked like a 3 or 4 story fall, which if you just like fall 3 or 4 stories and land on like your head, that's bad.
They make a point here to show that he gets cut in the face, and then they don't keep it on the character model, just in the live action stuff.
Oh yeah, that's right. As you're diving out the window, they just show all the glass shards, and one just like gently grazes and slices him open, and then no consistency on that whatsoever.
Because normally, as a storytelling device, would show that the character's going through a lot, and they're taking permanent, like literal physical damage from things going on, but they don't deliver on this at all.
Yeah.
Okay, so he beats up Isaac. Isaac says, "You're deaf and blind," over and over while cackling like an evil villain. You escape with Lala out of a burning building, and for some reason they show another combat cutscene that you don't interact with, where weed man Marcelo shows up for his fourth and final time to get kicked.
Yeah. And again, this is one of those weird times where the script feels like it was written by aliens. It feels like it was written by people who don't know how people talk. Because no one in that kind of fight situation ever would be like, you're deaf.
Yeah.
Like, in the middle of a fight. Like, what the hell? Like, also, what's the point of screaming you're deaf? That's the most antithetical insult possible. Like, you're roasting nobody. They don't know you're roasting them. That's the thing. And this is also from the same character who, while wearing the bird mask, just started talking at us again.
Okay, so we get a cutscene with possibly one of the other interactions Lala had with Dane, where Dane says the words, "A bird in a cage doesn't sing," and then they're like, "Oh, we're bonding over this moment where I don't have any voice at all and I can't sing in the world I want to be out in." And we don't have any context of when this happened.
Yeah, they mentioned at one point that, like, a big problem Tay was having is that Lala can play piano super good, but she can't sing anymore. She just won't do it. And this is, like, almost never referenced at all. Like, it is such a weird side note that they just never follow through on, which is kind of the Quiet Man in a nutshell.
So Tay thinks that Dane was the Quiet Man the whole time. He beats him up a whole bunch and then kidnaps Lala and takes her back to his lair. Dane is about to be captured and taken to until Bobbert shows up and then beats up the rest of the thugs, and then they decide to travel together to Tay's lair, which they were going to do in the first place. Yeah,
right. Yeah. And
this is the only part I found kind of funny. What's his name? Babcock cleans him up with his own blood, delivering on that joke they already played twice.
Yeah.
So that was probably.
I think. Yeah. Oh my gosh, we're about to get to my favorite flashback in the whole game.
Oh yeah. Okay.
All right. So we get a flashback to young Dane with his dad at the child psychologist, and the child psychologist, he's like being super nice to Dane as a psychologist would be with a child, and is just like, "Oh, who's that?" And he's like, "Oh, it's a hero. It protects people. Blah blah blah." Like basically explaining. On this drawing of like the Quiet Man, and it looks super creepy, and the child psychologist is kind of like taking this in and trying to figure out what's going on, and then he talks to the dad and is like, "Hey, I feel like your kid's going through a lot. He's really suffering. It's clear he's got some like anxieties built up because of this. You should really like talk to him and work through it and like make sure he knows it isn't his fault, because it seems like he might think it's his fault." And then the dad's response is he's like, "Fuck, that kid needs to suffer." Like,
yeah. It is his fault. He deserves to be like
he literally,
this. Why does he need a fake hero?
He's just like, he needs to suffer. Which, like, wow, Child Protective Services, what's up? How's it going? Like, wowie.
Seems like something you should have called about a long time ago.
Holy shit. Like, they managed to take the cop dad, who, again, was, like, one of a few sympathetic characters in the no audio version of the game, and just turn him into history's biggest monster. Because, again, like, in the original filming of it, it just looks like this kid making a creepy drawing as someone who's clearly either like a teacher or a psychologist or something is, talking to him very calmly and like kind of trying to work through it with him. And then he walks over and talks to the dad, and the dad just says some quiet words in response. And it looks like, it's just they're trying to figure this out, and they're clearly like, they know something's wrong and they're trying to work through it like a parent would with a troubled young child, like, again, completely reasonable, everything that. And then, they just decide to do a completely disingenuous switch by having it actually be, he deserves to suffer. Like, and that's what drives me crazy, is it's not clever, it's not smart, it's not interesting the way they did it. It's just straight up deceptive is what it is. It's like legit just a bait and switch that makes no sense. And they thought it was clever, but they forgot the part where, no, it's just blatantly deception and not in a clever way. It's so bad.
Yeah. And we kind of skipped forward a little bit, but there's this whole scene where Robert's admitting his plan to Dane about trying to make him into a Quiet Man and stuff like that. And they're both talking in the car. Dane is not looking at him at all, so he's not hearing any of this thing going on at this moment.
Yeah, which, again, then we, the audience, are hearing it in the second playthrough, which, again, like, whose perspective are we? It's so confusing when you try and figure out, because there's no consistency in where subtitling. Well, okay, there is consistency in where subtitling is in the first playthrough, because it's nowhere. It's as soon as you're out of the first scene, they just don't do it. But it just makes no sense in character context. For any character is the other thing too, not just for Dane, but if you try and think from the perspective of everyone else, even less so.
Yep. And like I have to admit, I have to like bring it up again too. These scenes are really boring on the first playthrough because you're just watching two talking heads talk and nothing is happening for like 5 minutes straight. I was reading some actual deaf person's Twitter account going through the game when they were going through first playthrough, and they were like, wow, these revelations, when you get to them, they're not going to pay off at all. And sure enough, they don't.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. That would be, someone who can actually read lips.
Yeah.
Damn. That's pretty OD. So,
Oh, they're also mentioning that the mouth movements on the CG models isn't like completely accurate either. So it would be hard for even a person who had to read lips to read the 3D models talking stuff, because they just don't have that level of detail to the mouth models.
It was a thing that didn't really come up on my first playthrough until the very, very end. But this game, one of the things that's beautiful is like there's a lot of weird ableist undertones throughout the whole thing. But the part where it was most blatant to me that they just clearly didn't give a shit was there were white subtitles with no outlines around them on a white background. Like literally you could go into Adobe Photoshop and take an eyedropper of the color of the text and the color of the background on top of it, and I guarantee it would be like maybe like 4 shades off max. Like it was impossible to read. So there is no accessibility. Like you made a game about a deaf protagonist. The best, like at the very least, make it super accessible to the deaf, right? Like at the very least, if you're gonna make a game, it's the kind of nothing about us without us mentality where it's just like at least consult with someone who is deaf, please. And they just didn't. And I guarantee you there are so many people who would have gladly accepted that kind of accessibility work to try and help even that out, but they just didn't even try. Like it reminds me in a lot of ways of some of the older like Call of Duty games where the Arabic was completely incorrect, where it was just right to left reversed. And I've watched Rami Ismail give a couple talks about this. Really good stuff, by the way. If you're interested in more, look up Rami Ismail, just talks about language and whatnot. But it's clear, like, they're super okay with using them as an object and a plot device. And obviously in those games, a target, which is way more egregious. But they weren't willing to take the 10 seconds to talk to somebody who speaks Arabic and say, like, is this good? Because, like, they, like, do the word hotel, but they just do it backwards. Like, everything is backwards. Because, you know, Arabic is not left to right, generally. So, oh, my God, the most Google Translate ass shit. And it's just like, just talk to someone. They'll help.
But, like, you don't even have to have some sort of disability in this regard with the subtitle part, because for years, people have used yellow text instead of white to convey this stuff because... it's a less common
yellow
color.
Rarely blends in, yeah.
Yeah. And then later on, you know, they did like Crunchyroll or anything you watch subs on nowadays, they have the white border around it, which would take no effort. You just say, hey, put a stroke on this, and that's it.
Like, legitimately, it's usually just a checkbox, and then you put how many pixels of thickness you want on it, and then what color it should be, and it's done. Like, it's something you do when you're setting your fonts. So, like, unless they...
It's something meme makers have been doing for
literally,
years.
impact font, white text, black outline. It's so free. It's so free. I was like, the only thing that I was pissed about, the only way they could have done this better is if it was white text on a white background, except it was Comic Sans. That would have been the only way it would have been better. Good Lord.
Yeah. Okay, so we get to this part where, like, Tay confronts both Dane and Robert and then says, hey, I'm sorry for everything going on. Can we be friends again if you just give up? After, you know, spending like 2 minutes punching him in the ribs in an alleyway. So he walks away like a Dr. Wily evil villain and leaves him to the not the robots, but leaves him to the thugs who beat up. Robert pushes one guy into a room just so he can get him out of the scene briefly, and you fight like, I want to say 10 guys for like 5 minutes
This is
straight.
the part where my guests and I were trying to figure out if I was doing something wrong. The other thing is, this is when you're in super mode, right? Like full super mode. I think you go full quiet man here at this point when you're fighting like a million dudes on the roof.
One more fight after this.
Okay. That's the one that you fight for like 7 years. Yeah.
Then Tay talks to you again in another scene before he runs off, and he's like really happy and like cheerful this time and tells you to kill Robert. And like they have no like idea of the direction they want to go with Tay, because half the time he's serious and cool, the other half he's like maniacal and misogynistic.
I was actually just going to point that out, because there was a part when we were playing through the game, and then also like someone else I was watching play through the game, kind of realized it felt really out of place. But yeah, there's a scene where it felt like they realized, oh shit, Tay is the most likable character. Ah, beans, we gotta fix that. So they just have him, like, after Lala leaves, just randomly run away and be like, hey, baby, everything's fine, baby. Come on, baby. And just have him try and be as fucking creepy as possible to try and make it so you don't like him. But oops, he's still probably the best character, even with that weird little bit of creepo scene. And it just really felt heavy-handed and forced, just like, oh crap, the audience doesn't know Tay's a bad guy yet. Like, at this point, Dane has been more of a bastard.
Yeah.
Across the board. We just, like, punched out a random window. We've beat up a bunch of dudes for, like, no real good reason. It's, yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
so you finally get to fight Babcock in another kind of stupid fight. I'm going to link you a video here of the environmental attack I got in this battle. Let's see. Boop. This one is definitely, you can tell it's a Yakuza thing that happens too.
Oh, yeah, I saw this one. Yeah, that's like, yeah, again, that is incredibly Yakuza, like, yeah, setup. So, yeah, again, there's just random sparks of inspiration in the middle of nothing.
And the way he gets kicked through the way Babcock gets kicked through a door too is totally the way that Kiryu would knock out a guard through a door, and then the guard like winces on the ground a bit, and then Kiryu would just walk over them. But the power levels don't make any sense here, because like Dane is clearly like none attacks from Babcock can hurt him, but you fight this entire boss battle.
Yeah, it just yeah, all the fights are bad, and like the hardest boss in the game by a country mile is just Isaac, because you have to do such a specific thing, and the way the events are flagged makes zero sense whatsoever.
Yeah. So,
and after that, everything's free. Yeah.
Yeah. So they walk into a room that's kind of poorly choreographed, and then Robert gets shot by. This is actually a kind of cool strategy. If you're being chased by two guys who want to kill you, just hide in the room, stand next to the door, and after they walk by you, shoot one of them in the back. You can't lose.
Yeah. Hey, good call. Just play smarter, not harder.
Yeah. Okay. So at this point, Dane realizes that it was actually Tay who shot the mom, not Isaac, even though they're both fighting over the gun, so it's still kind of...
Yeah, and that's the thing is, yeah, he blames it on Tay, but that doesn't make sense, because literally both of them have hands on it and are struggling over it when it misfires. So it's like, both of them did it entirely. Yeah. And also, wow, Dane really flips on people really quick, because like, it seems like, based on the cutscenes and the fact that Tay and Dane are still friends, like the implication to me was that Tay had like such overwhelming guilt about this that he just like kind of took on Dane like throughout his life as like kind of an apprentice. Well, maybe not an apprentice, but just someone to kind of like, kind of ride or die with. Just like, okay, we're bros forever. Like, we'll stick this through. And then out of nowhere, Dane's just like, actually, I'm going buck wild. Is this where we get shot in the head?
No. One more. We get Dane turning into the Quiet Man, because Robert, in his supposed dying breaths, put the mask on him, like says, "You want to be a hero? Use it." And then Dane puts on the mask, and then he gets a new moveset for literally 2 fights, where he fights through a whole bunch of guards again with worse animations, because he does like this high leg kick that is less effective than just doing jabs over and over.
Yeah, and this is absolutely where, in the no audio playthrough at the least, Tay shoots you in the head before you turn into the Quiet Man, because that's the whole thing, is he shoots you in the head. Again, I really just need to keep putting that down.
I want to say that there's actually 2 animation phases here. There's Dane, there's regular Dane, there's Dane with the mask on and gets a new moveset, then there's Quiet Man Dane. So sorry for the
Okay,
there.
so it's between the mask and full Quiet Man.
Yeah, so he gets a moveset for 2 battles, and then that's it. You fight Tay here, and he uses like a Muay Thai moveset that you've never seen elsewhere in the game, and it's just totally wasted on a section, because you just have to, keep doing the same strategy you've been doing this entire time. And then now he gets shot.
So your character gets shot in the head, and there has been... And this is another time where the David Cage angle feels very good, because it reminded me a lot of the weird turning point in Indigo Prophecy, or Fahrenheit, depending on what part of the world you're in, where it just randomly turns into Dragon Ball Z out of nowhere, and like stuff starts going all crazy, and everyone has superpowers, and it gets all mad, supernatural and stuff.
I want to say David Cage like watched The Matrix right before writing the game. And then
absolutely,
yeah,
gotta have one of those. And yeah, so you get shot in the head, and Tay is like clearly like feeling pretty bad about this too. Is the other thing, because like as he's talking to you before shooting you, like he's just like, man, this sucks, like we were best friends, and like now you're just going batshit, and like, you know, a rabid dog's got to be put down. Like again, Tay being one of the more reasonable characters, just being like, you are turning into a complete psychopath, you are very bad for business, I'm handling this. And then yeah, behind him when he's like talking to Lala, who is tied up, isn't tied up, I can't remember what her tied up situation is over the course of this encounter.
She apparently breaks out of it at some point, so...
yeah, and so yeah, just Tay's like talking, and then from behind him you see the shadowy figure rise up of the full Quiet Man with one of the worst eye lighting effects I have ever seen.
It looks like when an object is tethered to another object in 3D, and they never like add a passkey to make sure that it looks like it's fading off. So it just looks like it keeps being tethered to... It's like a Source game when your arms get caught on a wall and you try to walk off and the arm like starts freaking out.
Yeah, basically. So Quiet Man time. This is easily one of the funniest combats in the entire game, and there are multiple reasons, but the big ones are, this is the longest fight. It takes so goddamn long. Like they just keep bringing in more identical dudes over and over and over and over. And the other thing is, when you're in Quiet Man mode, you're basically untouchable. To the point of, if you press the heavy attack button and there is anyone within like 6 feet of you, probably more like 10, it just does a cutscene of like just a canned animation of him doing this really shitty looking spin kick to their face.
Exactly.
And you can just mash it. Like, it was to the point where I decided my main method of locomotion was if you just press strong attack and no one's nearby, you just do this little spin-a-rooney, like a really shitty little lariat. Like, it looks like if Bardock was taking the day off. Like, he just keeps like spinning around super slowly, and you can literally just move around by just mashing strong attack, and then as soon as an enemy is within 100 feet of you, you just instantly spin kick them in the head, and they're down. Oh, it's so bad. And then we did the same thing, but with light attack, and guess what? Works the same. You can just mash light attack, and eventually a cutscene will happen, and they fall down, and no one can hurt you, which completely undermines.
You have this throw, too, where you pick them up, and then you kick them, and you punch them in the balls over and over. And then you just repeat it until you get hit or you get bored of it, basically.
It's awful. Like, again, please don't buy the Quiet Man. Please don't support this. Irony dollars are in fact the same as real dollars, as it so happens. So just, if you must watch an LP of it, there are some playthroughs without people talking on top of it. Just don't buy this game. The gameplay is so bad, it's not worth it. Just watch someone else suffer.
Skipped over it, but you get this weird scene where they're both in Club Moonrise, Lala and Dane. And tell me if this sounds like what a normal person would do. Dane says, "You look just like my mom." And she says, "Yeah, you told me that before. Here's a picture of her. Wow, I do look kind of her. Yeah, you just like her. I want to save her, and I want to save you."
Yeah, this is where the weird Oedipus...
This is like every red flag would go off.
Yeah, there is no one desperate enough where presenting them, "Hey, you look like my mom. So, do you want to fuck or what?" Like, it's just, oh my god.
And the way she finds it attractive too, which is really, really
she's
creepy.
just like, "Oh, you really love your mom, and you're a hero." And it's like, there is not a woman on this planet who would take that way and not, "Oh my god, I gotta run. It is time to pack my bags and move to a different world." Like, this is awful. Oh, and yeah, she just very calmly is like, "Oh, that's sweet of you, thanks."
Okay, so you do this whole part with a Quiet Man twice where you have to dodge Tay's bullets and then attack him immediately after. Except me and a lot of other people didn't understand yet. You have to do a dodge at the right time and then do a counterattack immediately after with a different button. So we were stuck there just dodging bullets for like 2 minutes, wondering what the hell's going on.
Yeah,
Did you happen to run into that too?
I was dodging bullets for a really long time, and then I just said, "Oh, whatever. I got shot in the head once. Fuck it," and just took another one. And that's a game over. Turns out, you only get one bullet to the head. Then that's all. After that, your wizard powers are out.
All right, so after a long section, you fight Tay again. And for this fight, since he could be grabbed, I just grabbed him and I just punched him in the ball for 2 minutes and then dropped him and he automatically went to the next cutscene.
Oh, yeah, another good note. So again, we've talked about how this game represents being deaf through audio in different ways on the first playthrough. When you're the quiet man, it just is none audio left beef. They just completely cut all audio. They don't do the muffled thing. They don't do the weird musical Charlie Brown talking thing. It's just none. Just nothing. Just complete silence. It again, really frustrating that there's no consistency anywhere. Like, I don't know how on a maybe 3-hour total game you couldn't keep that together.
So after defeating, I think you beat him to death, basically. You defeat Tay. Your dad, who was shot and apparently dead, wakes up, climbs all the way back up there, and puts on a mask and delivers a speech to you wearing a mask that Dane can't fucking hear.
Yeah, again, feels the need to put the mask on and then start talking. Like, and so
can we say here that on the second playthrough, Dane has the worst acting. He mentally breaks down and starts going, "Why can't I hear?"
Oh god, I forgot about that. Where it keeps going. Why can't I hear? Which again, like, there is so many things that are more significant happening. It's one of those things of, like, this is one of those kind of like lightly ableist things that I can see slipping into a lot of media, which is like, you can live a normal life with being differently abled. It's totally possible. It's not something that, like, people who are blind don't literally go around all day being like, "I can't see." Like, it's not how that works. And that's all he's doing. Like, in this time where he just probably killed his best friend and then, like, had this weird interaction with girlfriend mom, and then also is now fighting his dad as the quiet man. And he's just, "Oh man, I'm deaf." Like, it just is completely out of place.
Yeah. Okay, so he fights his dad, and for a game that like prides itself on his audio mixing, it's really terrible here because while you're fighting him, he's just talking in normal dad voice. "I was always a bad dad to you, and I gotta make it up to you. So we're gonna have the final showdown." And you're hearing this interstitial while you're both throwing it out, like your whole body's like wasted at this point. And you both knock each other out.
Yeah, like, it's, what's the term for when sound is directly coming from an object in the environment? Like at the beginning of Metal Gear Solid 5, where there's like a radio that's playing the music next to your bed.
Are you thinking about diegesis?
Diegetic sound, yeah, exactly. This is the opposite of that, where there is a clearly established character on screen in the scene talking to you, but with a narrator overlay type of voice. And it's not being presented as that either. It's not like, this is a fight that's happening, and then this is him thinking about it in retrospect. It's literally him talking at you through a mask to a deaf character at just in the studio volume. Like, it really does just sound like they just got the recording out of the booth and did no, like, post-production, no ADR whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. So then mom wife walks over you, and she's barefoot for some reason, and then smiles, and then the game ends.
Yeah, like, almost everyone, like, I legit had to tell my Twitch chat, like, "No fetish jokes, we're moving on immediately." Like, as soon as because it was like a really long, like, we're talking Tarantino plus level of awkward lingering on feet that had no reason to be there.
And they were weirdly shaded too, so I thought, well, I was thinking, like, is this a foot demon or something?
Like, it was such a long shot, it was so awkward.
Oh, I almost forgot to bring this up. So they keep going back to this flashback of mom kissing Dane's head when he's a boy. And she says, "We don't need hearing," or something like that. Dane wouldn't be able to hear her say that when she's positioned over his head. And it keeps doing it like 3 times.
Again, I just imagine if you had presented this to someone who was deaf and even asked for a split second, hey, does this check out? They would just be like, no! It's just like, here's how we fix this. Like, clearly no one ever talked to someone who was deaf during the entire production of this. It's wild. It's wild.
Yeah. Oh, also, the dad, during the final showdown, he does like the Matrix come at me hand motion that Morpheus or Neo does. Like, that's the kind of thing you saw like everyone do in their Star Wars like fan movies when they were kids. That's not something you see in 2018 that adults do.
Also, it's extra bad because he's not like dressed up like some cool guy. He's a frumpy dude. Like he's like a frumpy 44-year-old cop on the beat. Like he looks like someone who, you know, maybe when he gets home he's like, God, gotta lay off the fucking donuts. Like so him trying to do this cool Matrix hand motion is just like, nah. I'm expecting some like very basic After Effects lightning to come out of his hands as he just is like, yo.
Yeah. So the one thing we learned after going through the second playthrough, or I should say at the start of the second playthrough, is you find out that Lala orchestrated her own kidnapping so she can get away from Tay. And that's literally it.
Yeah, like that's the biggest reveal.
We learned that in the first 5 seconds of the second playthrough. You don't have to play through the rest of it.
And the thing that makes it so confusing is it seems like a lot of the kidnapping like relies on Tay and his gang's interaction for the plan to go off, where it's just like, you can just leave. you can just go. That's cool. You can just do that. And like Tay does a little bit of weird like, hey, baby stuff, but it's never to the point where I think, oh, she has to get away from this man. This man is bad to her. As opposed to us who's like, hey, you look like my mom, wanna fuck? Like, like, we are clearly the worst of 2 options.
Yep. And then after the credits play out and you hear the theme, which isn't that great, you find out that Dane went to juvie for a little bit, and then he got out with his dad, and then the dad says, want to go for round 2? And then that's how the game ends. We find out that the Quiet Man is more of a quiet adolescent.
Yeah. And, well, that's the Quiet Man, everyone. I hope you enjoy it.
6 hours of my life. Plus that with all the game replay throughs I've witnessed.
Oh, goodness gracious. It's impeccable. It's impeccable in how bad it is. It's woof.
Because it takes a certain craft to make something intentionally bad. This was, I think they had no idea what was going on. They were too close to the project, and it just ended up like this.
Yeah, and again, this is why I really, like, earlier just wanted to hammer home that, like, Human Head Studios hasn't done any, like, breakthrough incredible work, but they've done a lot of things that felt passably a game. And also, someone at Square Enix gave funding to this, so I don't know how.
So I don't know how accurate Steam Spy is nowadays, especially with all the things changing. But I looked at the number of people who bought this game. It's around 20,000, maybe. They're not making their money back on this.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So that whole $33 million is also gonna have roughly one Quiet Man added to that.
Yeah. Oof. All right. So now it's the section I was kind of waiting for. How do we fix this game? And someone actually asked that question, so I'll just give credit to them. Let's see.
Was that Tlarn?
Yes. Tlarn. Is that how you pronounce it?
Tlarn. Yeah, it's Tlarn.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep. Buddy
okay.
line.
They ask probably a big question. How would you two fix the Quiet Man? That is, how would you approach the same idea of the project if this was a project you were put on? So I think it would have been as simple. Well, obviously, changing the story around entirely would be good. But I think if you wanted to make a game where you had to play it through twice and get different contexts, you would add subtitles at the beginning of the game normally, but you would have characters turn away from Dane when they're saying stuff that you don't want them to find out the second playthrough.
Yeah, like
and that way it adds context to things.
Yeah, step 1 would be internal consistency in the way dialogue is and is not presented. Mm-hmm. Like, have it make sense from the perspective of the character. And obviously, yeah, you might have to like move stuff around a little bit to make that work. But that was like the first and most obvious thing. I mean, obviously, step 1 would be if you're going to make a character about a deaf character, or if you're going to make a game about a deaf character, just please go talk to someone who's deaf. Like, go find someone and have them at least give it a nice once over. Even then, if it ends up sucking, then at the very least you can say, we tried.
Also, at the very start, adding on some kind of text tutorial or something like that, because this is not the illiterate man. This is the quiet man. We can read things. There's no text in the game besides the menu options.
Yeah, and yeah, that would be a big thing, like show up any kind of tutorialization. I mean, aside from, one of the big ones would be fix the combat and add in literally any form of variety. Mm-hmm. Like, have enemies work in different ways. Maybe have, like, a little moveset system you could unlock different moves for. I don't know, maybe, like, the bouncer. Yeah. Man, I don't know.
Like, if you were going to reuse the same characters over and over, put them all in masks, or just make them so generic that they look like generic SWAT guys or something like that.
Yeah.
And make, like, instead of just throwing on 20 guys for your later on confrontations,
and
make the fights harder.
Yeah, not even switching the outfits. That's what killed me the most. Like, it was the same exact outfits.
Especially when Weed Man stands out so much with his weed jacket and weed bandana. What else can we fix? I still think, like, it would have been cool if, like, Dane had some kind of internal soundtrack to what he imagines, like, a battle theme would... Because there's no reason why you couldn't just have a battle theme. Because all the battles have no impact when you can't hear anything.
Yeah, one other thing I think you could do is, if you were going to go for a different perspective from Dane's, I think you could do it in maybe an interesting way. If you could imply that you were playing more as the quiet man. You were playing as this, you know, affectation or this issue that he has. And then you could have things where during the no audio form, there was a scene missing. And then in the audio form, when you hear someone say something, then you think about a flashback that happens. And then you see Dad Cop being a real piece of shit, as opposed to it's just this entirely disingenuous, you know, film that they're showing.
Or even they could have done it like where they could have made Dane misinterpret things, because sometimes you miss words when you're reading on lips. So they could make it like there would be like blank spots where you couldn't parse what word they were saying, or he just takes it as a different word or something like that.
Yeah, or and imply that like Dane is very stubborn and stuck to his guns and stuff. So even if he misses part of the conversation, like you could have the conversation happening between Dane and his dad, and then, you know, Dane just being a piece of shit just looks away from him, and then just cut the subtitles there, and then have them come back when Dane starts looking at him again, and hide information that way in a way that is internally consistent, as opposed to just no information ever for some reason.
Yeah, and like this could have made the game like take a lot more development effort, not like much was put in anyway, but the first playthrough could have been more like a superhero action thing where you were like dressed up like a superhero, you were punching away through like sound effects going off, all this kind of like bombastic stuff. Then the second playthrough would have been more mundane like this, where you're just a normal guy who has a superhero fetish beating up other gang members.
Yeah, like there's a lot of different ways to present this, and
they went with none of them.
They went with none of them. Yeah, that's really what it is it feels like they tried a lot of things but didn't put any effort into doing any of those things. So they just kind of threw random plot devices all over and hoped something shook out into a story, like that haunted parsnip in the beginning. Like what was that?
All right, you want to get on to questions?
Let's rock them. Yeah.
Okay, we answered some of these. Thanks, Tactical Ogre, to Larn. Mistress Mononko says, did Dane ever notice he was beating up the same three members of Weed Gang? I don't think so, because he's kind of a psychopath in his own way.
Yeah, it seems like he's very much a punch first, ask questions never character. Yeah. And yeah, that again, it was one of those things where it might have worked a little bit better in the PS1 or N64 era, right? Where it's understandable if models are kind of samey and stuff, and there's enough lack of definition that they're not clearly the same person. And the problem is, they went for these, like, sort of photorealistic representations of people, so they have very defining facial features and very defining body types, and as you pointed out, very defining outfits in the form of a really sick weed jacket.
Yeah. And what sucks is he also appears in live action scenes more than once.
Yeah, at like different parts too.
Like you thought he would be knocked out and just done by the first one where he puts a sandwich bag on his head. No, he comes back later for the Moonrise fight.
And also, God, the line, "Are you stupid or very stupid?"
Stupid. Yeah. Have you seen images of the real actor for that guy?
No.
Okay, let me show you. I made a tweet about it, but it's definitely him. I'll give him credit for having the facial model. Facial model tech has gone up a lot in recent years.
Yeah. No, it looks like him. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Mystery Druids asks, what is the most confusing part of the story for you? Like, what makes the least amount of sense? Also, Dr. Spaghetti is a good name for projection of childhood trauma.
It's true.
What was the most confusing? Because there's a lot to take in there.
God, on playthrough 1, I think the mom girlfriend thing was such an utter wrench in the works when trying to solve the story. Like it added this whole angle of, are they the same person? Are they not the same person? Like, it was not nearly contextualized clear enough that these are in fact two different people. And then with all the supernatural nonsense happening at the end, I was like, oh, well, is there more supernatural nonsense going on? So it completely obfuscated any attempt at like puzzling out the plot because of that. I would say the other thing that's the most confusing is, why is everyone the quiet man? Everyone and no one simultaneously are the quiet man. Like, Robert is the quiet man. You're the quiet man. Sometimes your brain's just the quiet man. And it's
Isaac has the mask for some reason. There's also another one inside called Moonrise.
Yeah, there's like, and yeah, I think you mentioned it earlier. It's like, just was Robert just like off, just dropping these things around to fuck with people? Like, oof.
Okay, so, like, is he a private detective by this point, or is he because he's still working with the cops, so I don't understand what he is, like a sergeant, or...
It seemed like he was giving other police officers orders, so my assumption was he was a detective, but a detective as written by someone who doesn't know what an actual police detective does and thinks they're the same as just a private investigator.
Yeah.
So I think they were trying to do cop detective, but pretend he's a noir detective, which are not the same. Like, one of those is kind of a rank, the other one is a profession, and they got them totally conflated.
Mm-hmm. He's Inspector Gadget with that jacket. Okay, this is a good question. Tanner L. Pierre says, do either of you know any games that tackle deafness respectfully, or any other similar condition? I can't think of any for deafness.
Yeah, no. There's probably some indie projects that I just have never heard of, would be my guess. This seems like something... Like,
there's a couple things that tackle blindness, but I can't really think of
deafness. I can't piece any together. If you do know some, though, feel free to tweet them at me. I feel like I owe it to the deaf community to show anything good after playing through The Quiet Man twice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with blindness, there's Perception, which was pretty good, where you play as a blind woman. There's also Stifled, where all vision's taken away from you because you're in a really dark area, both for horror games that I'd recommend for that. And where you would use basically the entire environment for both games is for the most part black, and then you use echolocation to ripple off the environment around you. Which is apparently echolocation is kind of cool as a concept in general.
I think the only other ones I can really think of is the ones regarding like mental illness recently, and I personally haven't played through it, but I've heard really good things about how Hellblade handled stuff regarding different mental conditions. So that would be the only one I can really think of in recent memory.
Let's see. Okay, what is Kyrie A. Page asks, what is the one element about this game's production that you would want to learn the most about? How?
I was going to say just the management. Like, I really want to see how they planned things out, how they parsed out who did what, like just how did there end up being in a project that's this... I mean, the project obviously took a while, but the end product is so short. It's so brief, right? It's only a 3-hour experience, and then it's a 3-hour experience twice. But like in reality, it is a 3-hour thing. How did they not manage to maintain consistency in almost any aspect in 3 hours? Like, I just don't get it. Like, was there no communication? Did no one check from front to back and just be like, well, that doesn't make sense? Because that's all it takes. Like, anyone in a split second can recognize all the places where it's super wrong. Like, everyone I've watched play this game, one of the first things they said when they were doing the quiet playthrough was,
yep.
Oh, I think we left subtitles off on accident. One sec, let me see if I can find out how to turn subtitles back on. Because it makes so little sense that everyone just assumes, oh, I must have goofed it up. One sec, let me go check. And then you find out, nah, that's intentional. That is super intentional.
It's a thing I noticed with a lot of game studios try to do this thing where they try to use gimmicks with like new system technology, like when the 3DS came out, stuff like that, or just when you have this cool toy you can play with, you try to add on things to make it look cooler, even though it doesn't enhance the original intent. It's like when I'm trying to use, like I learned about a new filter effect in After Effects or Sony Vegas, and I try to play around with it, and then I see other people try to do the same thing, but they do it without reason for it. It's like, it's cool you add this cool like chroma out lightning bolt effect. Why does it have to be there? It doesn't contribute anything to the overall product. So
I'm glad you were about to say chromatic aberration, because that's exactly what I was thinking was chromatic aberration.
So they wanted to make this thing, they wanted to pad this thing out with just like making it look deeper than it is. But the problem is when you try to make something shallow look deeper, it comes off as pretension. And that is something everyone bounces off against immediately, unless it turns out to be funny like this or The Room.
Yeah.
All right. Lord Smath asks, are we sure the game was meant to be without audio? We kind of answered this already. Because it feels like it originally had audio and they just made the muted mode. I really would want to know, like, there had to be some kind of switch at some point when they realized this wasn't shaping out the way they wanted it to be, and then they had to add an angle to it.
Yeah, like the only reason I think this game was always on the we'll remove the audio and put it back in later angle is because that sounds like the kind of thing that you could pitch to someone who doesn't really know video games that well and get funding. Like, to me, having worked with some old dudes and pitching things to them, that sounds like what you would angle it as, just like, yeah, it's going to be a movie game hybrid, and get this though, the character's deaf, but then later on we're going to add the audio back in so you can hear it, and then you'll see what the story really was, and it's going to change everything, and it's a great cinematic game experience. And like, that sounds like how you would sell this to an executive.
Yeah.
So I think they always were going for that angle. It may have just been a case of they came up with the angle before they came up with how the hell they were going to do it.
You know what Square Enix thing it reminds me of, actually? Play Online, back with older Final Fantasy games. So Final Fantasy IX had a strategy guide from Brady Games. I think it was Brady, or Prima. But in the strategy guide, they would tell you how to do something, and it said, if you want more details on this, go to our website at playonline.com, and then you can get actual stats. So the game was filled with a whole bunch of random hints, and then to find out the actual details that you paid $15 for a strategy guide for, you have to go to this website and sign up for an account and all this stuff. And it made it sound like this really cool, unique thing that just added on an extra step to getting your work done.
Yeah, exactly. And it also may largely have been on account of they didn't receive complete information when creating the guide initially, and they needed to fill in details like once they figured out how to data mine.
Good point. Okay, official Faye Blah asks, on a scale of 1 to 10, how cringy was the gameplay and story? Negative 16 decibels.
1 million. That's the highest number I know, so I'm just gonna say 1 million.
Like, have you played anything nearly as bad this year from a first-party developer? Or not first-party, I should say AAA.
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
I made a list of games I played this year. Let's look through all of them. Dynasty Warriors 9 was pretty bad, but...
Ooh, okay, yeah, wow, that was pretty terrible. I mean, I guess... Okay, here's the thing I will say, Dynasty Warriors... Okay, on a mechanical and programming level, Dynasty Warriors 9 is the worst game I've played this year. And the reason I say that is because playing Dynasty Warriors 9 messed with some .ini or some config file on my computer that made it so when I booted up One Piece Pirate Warriors 3, it was all broken. So their game was so bad, it managed to break a game I actually like. And I was unbelievably tilted at this, because it was like right after I had finished playing some Dynasty Warriors 9, I was like, you know what? I'm going to remind myself why I like the Warriors games. I'm gonna just sit back and enjoy some nice pirate adventures. And then like it loaded in and all the models were messed up. The resolution options were way off. It had added in settings that didn't exist in One Piece Pirate Warriors 3 and rendered them to that. Like I went into the video options menu and it crashed because it was trying to load in options that didn't exist.
Shout out to the Quiet Man for making us forget that Dynasty Warriors 9 came out this year.
Yikes. Yeah. Okay, so on a technical level, I would say, yeah, Dynasty Warriors 9 is the worst game I've played this year. On a which one of these will be remembered and talked about for a very long time, and we're all going to sit down and have discussions about it and just really think about it. Yeah, The Quiet Man. And from a cringe perspective, I don't know if it gets worse than having the protagonist really want to fuck his mom and trying to paint this in a positive light the entire game. Because that's what made it so awkward to me, was just like, and especially once you know that angle. So the game over screen in this game is just, yeah, it's like you open your eyes and it's your mom just like patting you on the head and saying some stuff. And wow, it's so awkward once you know the whole, oh, he's into this. Uh-oh.
Okay. Hobbs Snoob Essay asks, would you play a prequel story to Quiet Boy? I don't think they'll ever get funding to make anything like this again, but I would play. Yeah, sure, I would go back in for another disaster. The problem is when things like this get made, they don't realize everyone hates it until afterwards, so if they try to make this again, it would be less sincere, I guess.
Yeah, but I think the best we could expect is Birdemic 2, where it's just too aware of itself and it kind of loses all the charm. I would play it though, because I'm a hero of the people, and I want the people to know. But I'll carry that weight, Space Cowboy. That's on me.
Okay. Paleo Grun said, "Are you gonna do Quiet Man cosplay?" Sadly, I own a jacket like that, so I kind of do it every day of my life. But I hope there's never Quiet Man cosplay.
So I actually, I was playing Monster Hunter with my buddy Maddie like 20 minutes before we started this, and Maddie had my favorite take on this of all time, which he's like, well, I would need to wear like a leather jacket with a hood. I already do that, so that's easy. I would need to be really awkward and not say anything, and well, got that one down too. Like just going through, and he's just like, yeah, no, I basically am already doing a Quiet Man cosplay just by being an awkward nerd in a nice coat.
I'm going to link you a tweet right now because I happened to look up Quiet Man cosplay. You need to see this.
Yes. All right, let's check this out.
I'll put in the video version as well.
And this is another Maddie. What the?
That's a look. Stupid hoodie with a leather jacket over it.
And just the really awful punches.
He's done it. Well, congrats to Thomas I'll link to it. Thomas Loney. You did it. Quiet Man cosplay. Okay. Incredible Torch asks, are you guys prepared to go off on how ignorantly ableist this game is? I think we did for 2 hours now.
And the thing is, it's just so wild, and like I didn't want to, go too deep on it because obviously, again, I'm not really the right person to ask why is this offensive to deaf people. You should really just be asking deaf people. But at the same time, it's blatant. It is mad blatant, and it's real gross.
Pidmon asks, yo, what's up with this game being like incesty stupid about parents as an adult? For some reason, some people on Twitter are really unironically into having like a mommy girlfriend kind of thing, and it's gross, but they don't have a filter for that, I guess. And I say this as someone who looks like a mommy girlfriend, but
but they play it up as this big positive angle, and it's one of those things of, it's not progressive. It sucks. It is a thing that has been frowned on by societies since time immemorial for a very large reason. Like a lot of reasons. And
there's 3.5 billion women on this earth, and you decide to go for someone who looks exactly like your mom.
It's even worse when you put it that way. Like, 6 billion people, and you decided to fuck your mom.
All right, here's a good question. Why did Dane have to get directions to the weed gang on a hot dog napkin when it doesn't seem like his own gang ever uses that to kind of discretion again? Also, the whole split personality flashback still makes no sense to me. Like that, when did it happen in a time frame? Why is a single scene feed? A lot of good questions.
Is that how you try and like elevate yourself to Tarantino? Is that what you do now if you don't understand anything about Tarantino and you just like look up what ties all Tarantino films together, and it's like, yep, feet. So it's just like let's just throw those in the end, and then everyone will know we're good.
Like, for a first scene, I thought he was, without any context for the rest of the game, I thought he was some kind of, like, vigilante superhero thing, because he was getting directions from some old guy on where to find evil guys to beat up. But no, it was just some gang thing that they did to be discreet.
And, yeah, like, that seems like... It's a really bad way to communicate information, too, because you just added another link in the chain, and when you're trying to do discretion, you just try and keep everything one-to-one as possible. Like, I tell a secret to one person who needs to know it. That's the end, as opposed to, yo, okay, so I'm going to have you walk really close to where this place is, but to get the exact location, you need to talk to the hot dog guy.
Did we ever get any information about his, like, because it's clear that he has some kind of weird personality thing where he just loses lapse. He lapses time and then he becomes a quiet man insanely for brief moments.
Yeah.
But we only really get it for that one scene where he happens to confuse Tay.
Yeah, it never really makes sense. Again, there's no consistency to it in the way it occurs, in the way it plays out, in are we in control of it? Are we not in control of it? That's the other thing too, is there's scenes where we are controlling the quiet man, but then throughout the game, he's like an uncontrollable force, right? It's just like something that takes over and does stuff in a Fight Club-y fashion. But then they lose that. Like, at the end of Fight Club, he doesn't just become Brad Pitt and do shit. Like, that's not how it ends. Ugh.
I really think they really wanted to try to be Fight Club with this and having like a whole angle with discovering the truth of everything.
I think between the clear Fight Club angle and the Matrix hand motion, I feel like this game was created by someone who hasn't seen a movie in like 10 years. At least, maybe 15.
Tangent, but speaking about Fight Club, have you ever seen that GDC talk from the creators of DMC on what they wanted Dante to be? Okay, it's a really infamous thing, but after the game came out and kind of came out to negative reception by a lot of people, they gave this whole presentation how they pitched Dante, and it was Capcom wanted it too, but they wanted Dante to be this edgy, looks like a drug user, gets in all these fights. They cited Fight Club as an example of what a man is, even though the entire point of that movie is disassembling what the common perception of men are and how toxic masculinity affects everything.
Yeah, that's like the idea. Oh my god, this. So the point just really left these folks, huh? It just really went over their head.
I think that's just the curse of Fight Club in general, because there's so many people that take that movie without context.
Cool robot, but for punching, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Basically it is the same as watching all of, Gundam like MS-08 and just being like this whole thing for the Vietnam War and just being like, yo, those Gundams with backpack for their applesauce, though. Love those guys.
Jeez. All right. So this will probably come out in like 2 months because I already have another podcast I still have to put together and all sorts of other projects. But where can we find your shit to plug?
I am at twitch.tv/TieTuesday. I stream video games. Sometimes they're good. Sometimes they're the quiet man, The cards fall how they may. I also do, patreon.com/TieTuesday. Just run a Discord off that. And I have a YouTube channel. It'll show up if you look up TieTuesday. I move videos over there sometimes. But yeah, just really come hang out at Twitch. We have a really good time. We have lots of interesting conversations about things like the quiet man.
You have a lot of interesting noises whenever someone donates or subscribes.
Yeah, and we're about to...
Like, I'm used to it by now, but, like, the first time I went in and just heard the stupid mashup of Black Knight
Night of
2000
Fire.
and Night
Oh,
of Fire.
it's good. And I'm recording my 2-year sub notification soon, and I'll tell you what it is after stream because I think you'll find it hilarious.
Okay, cool. All right, well, that's it. Thanks for surviving through 2/3 of another Quiet Man. Let's play through with us. I've reached the bad end.
Yeah. God. And was doing laundry with a lady friend at the time. Dude, mom's dead parkour! Mom's dead parkour! Mom's dead parkour! Mom's dead parkour! That dude had no